The culling of KNBR as a radio station, it makes me so sad. It makes me so sad. First of all, there is the collateral damage of careers that have been torn apart and taken away from people. And again, I don't know if there's a good time to lay anyone off, but just about to get into the month of December, like in between the holidays, is the biggest dickhead move any corporation can make. And you can see that these radio stations are owned by dickhead corporations. Careless corporations. Now, I can speak from experience as someone who's been laid off by a terrible corporation. That I guarantee you would happen to Paul McCaffrey is the same thing that happened to me, a person who's never listened to a show, not for a single day in their life. Some accountant in another city somewhere just saw a number that they drew a red line through. Goodbye, Paul McCaffrey. Goodbye, FP Santangelo. Goodbye, Lee Hammer. Goodbye, a producer. Goodbye, a digital department. I guess that pretty much got wiped out over there as well. Again, nothing says we're embracing the future like wiping out a digital department in a radio station. Morons. And then there's the thing that, again, beyond some friends of mine being out of work today, and by the way, I've reached out to Paul McCaffrey and FP Santangelo. I'm going to get a call into Lee Hammer a little later this afternoon, and I've already been in touch with Brian Murphy, who, again, is the remaining figure. He just got his marriage broken up by someone else. Murph and Mac were together for 18 years. And Paul McCaffrey needs to be saluted on an 18-year run. There are very few human beings who have ever had a morning drive major market run of 18 years. I think Murph is going to take a couple days to cool down, and he'll probably be back next week as KNBR tries to reshape itself without a 6 to 10 o'clock time slot. And that's what I would like to talk about with you. I hosted that time slot. If KNBR would have found out a way to pay me right, I would have hosted the sports phone time slot for 35, 40 years and been happy as a clam doing it. I loved nighttime radio. I loved doing postgame. It's why postgame and Damon's taken over the internet. I love an evening of taking calls and talking to fans and doing interviews and having an entire day of sports to look back on and an entire day of sports to preview. I love that time slot. And it's gone. That time slot was a proving ground for myself, for Larry Krueger, for Ray Woodson, for FP, for so many that came before us. Dave Newhouse, Ken Dito. So many names touched sports phones, so many callers. Bob from San Jose, Annie Baby, Sporticus, who is still here in our chats after all these years. Filmo, Town Business, Priest. I tried to list them. They were such a part of sports phone's DNA and therefore a part of San Francisco's interesting radio tapestry, which is less interesting today than it's been in 50 years. For a time, sports talk radio and sports phone was the longest continuously running radio program, I believe, on the West Coast. Only a continuously running call-in show on KMOX in St. Louis, I think, was the longer running show. And it hurts. I loved radio so much. It didn't love me back. Paid me well for several years, but when it came time to love me back and the decision was made, it didn't love me. I'm just old enough to still fall for the trick. I'm just old enough to get nostalgic about these, yellow Kodachrome old Polaroid pictures that are my radio memories. And it hurts my soul. It hurts my soul for the status of where radio is right now. And it hurts my soul because I'm always thinking and hoping for a next generation of broadcasters to come through and make the industry proud. Don't be the Skip Bayless douchebag crowd. Like, actually have a real opinion based in reality and go with it. And you can hear young talent usually in evenings or on the weekends, because that's where young talent proves itself in radio. And when evenings and weekends go away, where does young talent have to turn to prove itself? It makes me sick. The next generation of broadcasters is being killed off because there's no position to broadcast from. If all you've got on a radio dial is morning, middays, and afternoon drive, those are usually always occupied by experienced people. How do you get experience? So we now live in a world where, YouTube is going to matter more than ever before to not just up-and-coming broadcasters, but broadcasters that have been disregarded, broadcasters that have been laid off, and people who want to do this. I had this wonderful advantage coming to YouTube, and that was an 18-year-long on-air, near daily relationship with Northern California sports radio listeners and fans. And because of that, we were able to hit 10,000 subscribers in 242 days. How can any young man or woman breaking into the industry, breaking into YouTube without some ridiculous viral video launching them into the stratosphere because they showed enough cleavage while they were putting or did something like so inexplicable that everyone's like, look at this guy. And it's hard. It's hard to establish yourself in any medium, even when you're established in another one. Like, I had to pivot from radio to digital, and it took me 7 months and 28 days to get to this 10,000 subscriber threshold, which only 2% of all YouTube channels apparently get to. So it's great to be here. And I can't wait to see where this goes from here. Because, folks, radio's over. It's dead. And if anyone at 95.7 The Game is listening to me right now, if any remaining hosts on KNBR is listening to me right now, if any actual radio host is listening to me right now, I'm telling you, you get your backup plan ready, because that red line is coming for you. And it's coming for you because there is middle management corporate bloat that is part of the reason why these stations can't figure it out. I'm thinking when the problem started, and like so many problems, the problems really started years before you think they actually did. There was a round of layoffs in radio about 5-8 years before the pandemic happened. And in that round, basically, an awful lot of well-paid adults were asked to leave or laid off or bought out. So you got an awful lot of adults out of the room, people who know how to fix problems because they're experienced veterans, and they get replaced by, 20-something gum snappers who are very lucky to be here. And look, they're not guilty of anything other than being young or inexperienced. But young and inexperienced should be working underneath the older and experienced crowd. They were never meant to instantly replace them. So now everyone that knew what they were doing was replaced by a whole bunch of people who, through no fault of their own, really don't know what they're doing yet because they haven't done it long enough. But boy, they match the new price point that the station is operating under. And so when you have know-how replaced by don't know how, and then you have a real problem, like the pandemic come around, now no one knows how to solve that problem. They didn't know how to sell radio spots and advertising when things were good. Now that they are gouge your eyes out level horrific, no one knows how to solve the problem. Because the people who knew how to solve the problem got laid off years ago, replaced by don't know hows. And that's where so much of the problem of all this comes from. Let me ask another question. How come as all these radio stations bleed out? How come it's never the totally replaceable business degree from Hofstra douchebags who get let go? Like, why would you start in a business that will always be dictated by talent? Why would you start laying off the talent to keep the galactically replaceable pencil pushers? That makes no sense. But when the pencil pushers are in control of who stays and goes, obviously they never circle themselves as a gots to go. You get power when you push a pencil in the corporate world. And radio, honestly, was never supposed to be a corporate world. It was supposed to be entertainment and show business, but corporations ruined that. The last thing I'm going to say about this is one of the things that just bothers me is when they get laid off and they want to go and put out this perfectly crafted by some, looks like a lawyer or an agent wrote it and saying, I just want to thank everyone for all the years. You didn't get one of those out of me because I'm pissed and I'm still pissed. I'll always be pissed. It's great to be here on YouTube. Thank God I got pushed out when I did. I now see the path out of all of this, but I'll never, ever not be pissed on how it ended and how they just took my 18-year-long career and discarded it. So here's what I am. And here's what I'm going to do. I am vengeance. Let me say that again. I am vengeance. And I am coming for everything that these radio stations have screwed up and dropped and fucked up, and I'm coming for it. And tomorrow morning, when Larry Krueger and I go live with 49ers Wake Up at 8 a.m., we will now have established ourselves as the biggest sports talk radio station in the Bay Area. We will dwarf the combined listenerships of KNBR and 95.7 The Game tomorrow morning starting at 8 a.m., and there is no going back. It was my town to begin with. It remains my town. I'm not giving it up. And we're just getting started over here. We are just getting started.